Okay, something a little bit different today. I've been promising to do this for a while, and so I've finally got around to actually getting myself organised. And we're going to talk about fantastic locations for Dungeons and Dragons. And I've talked about briefly how I construct my own adventures. And so what I thought I would do is I'll give you an example of the type of process that I use when I'm creating my own locations, because I'm a location-based sort of dungeon master. I always try to let the players create the story rather than me, and I give them the location and the characters or monsters. Anyway, that's beside the point. If you want to get past all of this rambling while I check my sound and so forth, you can do that. All you need to go and do is go down to the description, and you'll find the start time down in the description. Once YouTube publishes this video, it should be down there. I'll make sure that I adjust it so you know when I've got past all of this. Now, if you're not part of my live streams, or the first time you've been part of my live stream, normally what I do is I present everything first, and once I've done that, I'll respond to people's feedback, answer questions, just say hi. I'm totally open to doing that. So we're going to get started pretty much now, and this should take, I would say, roughly about 10 minutes, maybe 15. I keep miscalculating how long it takes me to talk about stuff, but I've got about 2 pages of material, so we'll see how we go. Okay. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm not necessarily talking about just Dungeons and Dragons 5e or any particular version of the game. I'm just talking about the creative process of coming up with fantastic locations for your adventures. Now, I am the sort of person who tends to base my adventure around a location, and then I will populate it with monsters and creatures, but I'll talk about that more later. Today we're going to talk about the Arcane Lighthouse. Now, I saw this piece of artwork. It's actually from Magic the Gathering. It's a Magic the Gathering card, and I know a few people don't like Magic the Gathering, but this is my process. Usually I see an image and then I draw from that and build my adventure from that single image. It might be a collection of images, but sometimes it's just one single image. So these are the sorts of things I was thinking about when I saw this particular Arcane Lighthouse. So it's a magical floating tower. It has white stone with glowing yellow sphere sort of resting right at the peak of the tower. There are beams of radiant yellow light projecting from holes in the spinning globe. I feel like it would be spinning. It doesn't actually do that, but that was what my imagination was doing when I was looking at this image. There's a chunk of grey and green rock, as far as I can tell, that supports the tower at the base. And in that rock or stone, there are cracks in the stone at the base, revealing what looks like more pulsing yellow energy. So what's the story with a lighthouse? Usually lighthouses are placed in a location to warn people, usually near the sea. But this is not your standard lighthouse. This is the type of lighthouse that could warn somebody, whether they be by the sea, the beach, over land, near a mountain. It could be positioned in the sky, up in the air. It could even be positioned somewhere like the astral sea. You could put it in a location which is more sort of multi-universe in nature rather than just being sort of Earth-like. So what sort of things would the Arcane Lighthouse warn people of? That's what lighthouses do. They warn people of danger or nearby hazards that they need to avoid. And I thought, well, one of the most common things you might use is something like a gravity well. A gravity well in the astral sea makes an awful lot of sense. We're talking about things like the black holes. Or if you want to place it in a location which is more sort of got a bit of land or sea behind it, then you could use a portal. Maybe there's a portal to a faraway dark world that people need to avoid, and that's why you've placed the lighthouse in that location. Or even a rip or tear in the fabric of time and space. And lastly, let's not forget, there's always the chance that the lighthouse has been placed in a location near to some great lair, entrance to a terrible creature, such as the Kraken. Or, even worse, if you want to go spell jammy, then we can go with I believe it's the Astral Dreadnought. I haven't seen the Astral Dreadnought for a very long time, but that's the sort of ideas that was popping into my mind when I saw that. So how would the lighthouse warn people? Is it just the beams of light that do that? Or is there something else going on? We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons here, so fantasy, we can do anything we like. So how does it deliver its message? It might be by the beam of light. I was thinking that it might have a telepathic message that it could send off to anybody who came near it, or just simply a booming voice that speaks literally every language. So it's like it's using the tongue spell, and that would help communicate the danger, no matter what race or culture or creature they were coming near this thing. So who lives in something like this place? Who lives in an arcane lighthouse? And I thought, well, archmages who've been there for ages, a council of wizards who are protecting, say, the multiverse, or you could make it really simple and decide that it's a magical construct and it's built into the tower itself, a consciousness or being of some kind, and that's what's living inside the tower. It doesn't actually have to be anything at all. It might be all automated in some way, just magically. Or if you want to get completely crazy and a bit out there, you could decide that maybe it's populated by a group of mind flayers who cast spells, and they are positioning this lighthouse beside the brain, the colossal brain of a dead god, and cast gentle repose on it. And so they spend pretty much an eon just feeding off this god's dead brain with gentle repose cast on it, so it doesn't decay, sucking all the juices and goodness out of it, making themselves smarter, and hopefully eventually transforming those mind flayers into gods themselves. Or you could go really, really crazy and decide that your mind flayers are also liches, and they're feeding off the rotting flesh of a undead god brain, or something like that. Those are the sorts of ideas that were flowing through my brain, and I thought I would share those with you. So what's inside the Arcane Lighthouse? Well, I thought it's such a small image. You know, the tower itself is actually quite small, and what popped into my brain was Doctor Who. How you can see this small police box, but inside it's much larger. So I think the Arcane Lighthouse would be much more interesting if, even though it looks quite small from the outside, it's actually much larger on the inside. So it has an extra dimensional space with it. So with multiple levels, maybe traps and monsters filling a dungeon that wraps around the core, which is like the central chamber that controls the lighthouse, and this is what is sort of the protective layer to make sure people or creatures or beings or entities can't interfere with the lighthouse and its purpose. It might have many layered libraries of forbidden arcane lore and magical wonders, maybe workshops where our wizards and mind flayers are working. It might even have inside, as I suggested, a encapsulated god imprisoned in some sort of ancient spell or magic, in some sort of massive crystal inside there that's been reduced down in size. It's a little bit weird, I know guys, I know, but I thought I would suggest these things because what happens when you get a location like this is you want your players to interact with it. So by answering a whole lot of questions about that location, you start building mechanics and real-world physics into it, and opportunities and possibilities for them. So the first issue I would say is, how do you get to the Arcane Lighthouse? Because if it's off the ground, it's not going to be so easy to get to. And I thought, well, you know, you could go with a standard grappling hook and a rope if it's not too far off the ground, or it's floating near a mountain or something like that. Or you could use teleport spells or magic, even flying magic to fly to that location. Or you could get really crazy and go and capture yourself a flying beast, or use a flying vessel of some kind, maybe a Pegasus, fly up there and get onto the rock section, and then of course you've got to try and find your way in. I would imagine something like a Arcane Lighthouse would have some sort of boards to stop people teleporting straight inside it. So I would eliminate that. That's what I was thinking. But of course, this is all just my ideas flowing, and you can change anything you like. So where is the entry doorway? Well, I figured it would be something that's secret because I didn't see a door on the lighthouse itself. So I figure it's going to be a secret door with some sort of magical runes that you need to decipher to unlock it. And it's probably warded from teleporting, as I suggested. And of course, it'll be a magical entry of some kind. So what does the Arcane Lighthouse do? Well, we already said it's supposed to be there to warn people of some sort of danger. But I thought some other aspects to it, because those beams of light coming down sort of made me feel like it was trying to do something else rather than just warn people or individuals or creatures. And one of the ideas that popped into my mind is that maybe that beam of light that it casts is doing a little bit more, such as an anti-magic field. Certainly that's the first thing that popped into my mind. Now that anti-magic field might be temporary. It might be only while you're in the beam, or it might be permanent, making anything that's magical in that location no longer magical. Stripping away magical illusions. So if somebody's trying to sort of make their way towards it and has devious reasons for doing so, any kind of illusion that's been presented, such as invisibility and so forth, is stripped away. Detect magic. Maybe it's a little bit like Star Trek and the Enterprise, and those beams are there to actually help it detect magical auras and maybe the properties of any kind of magic that comes near it. Or even more. It might break it down even to more mundane aspects, such as blood flow and heat and temperature, stuff like that. All these ideas sprung into my mind when I saw this particular item of artwork. So I thought I would share it with you. That's my thoughts on it. I'm hoping that you will have found this useful to you. Now remember, this is just my ideas. You can add to it as you see fit. If you don't like it, don't use it. But if you did like it and enjoy it, I'm going to probably do more of these. So please share and like the video with other people if you found this interesting or useful or entertaining in some way. If you want to continue to support me, look, I'm going to be doing a long string of series of videos like this. So subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed so you can watch more of them. And consider hitting the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish a new video. Often I do at least one pre-recorded video each week, and the rest are usually live streams. Now, as I said, if you want to support my channel, watching this video supported my channel, and thank you very much. It really does help. I have many more videos which you're welcome to go and check out and find out. There might be something you find useful. There's bound to be, because I've got like 600 other things. I don't do Patreon, but down in the description you'll find affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon, where you can buy stuff online. I get a small commission. You pay exactly the same as you normally would. It doesn't change. So that's the book depository and Amazon. Go through the link and buy what you want. You don't have to buy the thing that I've linked to. Now, if you have questions, right now in the live chat is your opportunity. So start typing now so that I can answer your questions or respond to your feedback. You might come up with a better idea, something better that I haven't thought of. Please consider giving me some feedback. I do appreciate that when people do. If you're not part of the live stream though, then I would suggest typing down the comments section. That's what the comments section is all about. Tell me, what would you do with this Arcane Lighthouse? Does it look like something you would use in your own adventure? Or is it sort of a bit too out of the way of what you were hoping for? Anyway, let me know what you think of it. Personally, I think it's quite an interesting location, certainly for maybe part of a session, if not an incomplete session, maybe 2 to 4 hours. Okay, and that's it. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. I'm just going to pull up a different screen, although we could look at the piece of artwork forever, but I'm not going to do that. What I really want to do is, yes, you've got a good point there, Ian. It would make a good one shot. I'm just going to pull up the screen that I had prepared, if it'll let me do so. Where is it? There. Okay. Alright, so, and clicking the button, and let's get the mouse out of the way, because the mouse doesn't need to be there right now. Okay. Alright, so now I just need to, where's the chat box? Alright, I'm a bit more organised now. Sorry about that. Taking a little while. How's it going, Ian? Excellent encounter. I'm looking to make a horror one-shot for my buddies this weekend. Any suggestions? Okay, monsters, places, etc. Ian, a few years back, I was running Keep on the Borderlands. And part of Keep on the Borderlands is usually they leave holes in the older adventures. It's quite an old adventure. And one of the locations was the old Wizard Tower, Old Tower, or Watch Tower, or something like that. I can't quite remember. And so I had to build that location. So I did. And what I decided was, I'd seen a picture from Dungeons & Dragons 4E, and I wanted to create the structure, and I wanted that to be the feature. So it was the location, the tower was. It was also the monster. So that means they were actually going inside the tower, and I didn't know till later on that what they had moved into was an enormous mimic. It had shaped itself like a tower. It had like red ravens that would flock around it, and inside the mimic, this giant tower, were many other mimics, and the whole place was decked out like a wizard's tower that had been abandoned, but it hadn't been abandoned. And what was confusing was there was no sort of rubble. Everything was tidy and neat, but everything in there was trying to eat them or attack them. And when they finally figured this out, they had to try and escape. And so I based a lot of that information off one piece of artwork from Dungeons & Dragons 4E. I think it was the Monster Vault, and I used a Wandering Tower, which was essentially a mimic that disguised itself as a building. And I also had been watching a movie called Monster House. I believe it's an animated movie, and this is about like a creepy old house, and essentially a couple of kids, local kids, go into this location, and it tries to eat them. And so they've got to try and figure out the mystery behind why the house is alive and how to stop it and all that sort of stuff. So I essentially used that information and built my adventure around it. Does that help you in any way, Ian? I hope it does. So yes, I think a location being the monster can be really useful to you. It doesn't need to necessarily be a place and separate from that. That's just one idea. What else could you do to scare your buddies? Monsters and places. You could use something like, that's awesome, excellent insight, thank you very much. You're welcome, Ian. I am glad I was able to help. I do appreciate somebody actually responding in the chat. That makes it a little bit easier. Otherwise I feel like I'm talking to myself. So what is happening tomorrow? So tomorrow I will talk about the new series that I will do called Fantastic Dungeons & Dragons Locations. And I thought rather than starting off with the intro video and then doing the examples, I would start with an example, which is the Arcane Lighthouse, and then I would feed in and go from there. And they're going to be pumped out relatively quickly, I hope. I've talked about doing between 50 and 100. That is still my plan. So my idea is that you'll get so many different locations that you'll be able to go through a playlist and just pick something and then build from that and put your own ideas into it and make it your own. And that will sort of help you out. And we're going to use a lot of artwork, but we'll use a lot of pulp fiction, such as movies, because I love movies. Okay, so thank you to everybody who showed up, and I'm going to head off and get on with the rest of the night.